How old are you, Lucas?
I'm 28 years old.
It's good. It's good age.
I'm young, but I'm getting older.
Right. I'm for full disclosure, I'm 36.
Jesus,
Yeah,
kidding.
right,
Just
getting
kidding.
old. Do you? So I'm curious. Do you have any friends who are significantly older than you?
Well, you're sitting right next. I'm just kidding.
I mean, you're not wrong. Almost a decade older than you.
Jeez. We need to look into it then. I'm just kidding. I would say I have a friend that is in his, I think, late 70s. And I have another friend that is in early 50s. And what I've was telling Ben about this a little bit before we started. Man, both of those guys, they're godly men. They love their family. And the way, I mean, I've seen the good, I've seen the bad, and we've even had conflict too, you know? And they have saved me so much headache. And I think they were the ones, actually, I know they are the ones, they were those friends that they said the hard thing to me. And it was natural and I think that's why I would dry away because I'm going to have another hard conversation with these two. But man, with that though, they love the Lord so much. And it's not like this mentorship too. It's like, no, like we're actually friends. And you know,
What is that? Describe what that looks like.
like one of them, is we do a lot of business stuff together. And when I first started in the business world, he kind of took the chance with me of like, yeah, I'll let you do this project for me, or I'll let you kind of do this for me. And in that, we've done a lot of stuff together. And through that, I got to interact with him a lot. I got to know his family, and I went to church with him a lot. I have seen him go through losing a business. I've seen him going through situations with his family, like I've seen it all. And also like, that we've had disagreements, but we kept making it about Jesus. And he's someone that I can call. It's not like, yes, I look up to him.
Yep.
But he's not like, oh, I'm here to get, it's this discipleship too, that it's just is happening naturally, And he just said yes to things. And he also was said, what are you doing, dude? But yeah, I think I don't like using the word mentorship because it's not like I didn't go ask him, hey, no, it just happened, and, but now, man, he speaks into my life. I also speak into his life.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part I wanted to say.
Mutual.
Yeah. But there's times that I've changed his mind, and there's times that he's changed my mind too, And the friend that's a lot older is late 70s. Did I say? Yeah, I think in late 70s. Man, he is the one that is just has helped me grown so much deeper with the Lord by asking the real questions.
Yeah.
They both have, but he's been the one really just to kind of push that of like, how are you doing? And don't answer it like you're fine. I just want to know, how are you doing? And so much, he always keeps bringing it back to the Lord. Every single time. It's always about the Lord, Yeah. And he's helped me just to kind of even step out in my faith more and more and more. And even, the person I was pursuing, and like the girls that I was talking to, it's like he was kind of the one that kind of like, really? Like he would say those hard things like, are you ready to marry her? No. Then why are you dating her? He was that one. But also like
Hard questions.
I've also challenged him too. It's like, well, you're just thinking like that because you grew up that way, And he's like, no, I'm just looking at God's word, and what you're doing doesn't align with that.
Yeah.
He's challenged me too. So, but yeah.
Yeah, one of the challenges, I think, when you're in the stage of life, like late teens, early 20s, what I'll call the young adult stage of life, even into your 30s now, you'd be in that stage of life, is like it's easy to surround yourself by your peers and be like, okay, this is, because that's the natural, right? Those are the people you're going to have similar schedules to them. You're going to enjoy doing similar things, probably have similar interests. And so by default, we tend to have our friends be all, or at least primarily, people who are very similar to us, particularly in age. But there's so much value, like you're talking about, of having different people from different generations. You were talking older, I think younger applies as well. Having friendships with people of from different stages of life adds so much value. It's going to give you a variety of perspectives, like you were just talking about. You're going to have people who are going to ask you questions if there are different stages of life. They're going to have wisdom to bring to bear, even just like practically, experientially. Like in your case, you're talking business stuff. I've got some older guys who I would call friends, and here's one the challenges I think is we tend to assume, when you have peers, you do certain kinds of things with them, like in your young adult or college stage days of life. Probably what you're doing with your friends is you're like hanging out, going to movies, maybe you're studying scripture, or you're doing other stuff. You're probably going to do less of that more like casual hangout kind of stuff with people of different stages of life. But that doesn't mean it's not a friendship. Like I think of some of the older guys that I've learned a ton from and have spoken a lot into my marriage or into parenting, and other stuff like that. There's been huge value there. Things that I can ask them and they'll ask questions. I'm like, oh man, I didn't even think about that as a option or as a thing to evaluate. There's huge value in having those friendships.
Yeah, I think there's, also we can't attach wisdom with age though too, and we have to be careful there, because I've seen people that are all older than me that think they're wise, but they're not wise, and I've seen people that are younger than me that are not wise. But there's something about wisdom of life experience, and when people have kind of turned from that and looked at Jesus, and that wisdom they give you that flows from Christ and His Word, like that's the kind of wisdom that we're kind of talking about too. Yes. Ultimately, it's not theirs. It's God using every situation in their life to reflect Him and to make it good because of Him too. So like that's what I've seen with both of those guys. Yeah. Like, so when they speak, they're not speaking from like, oh, I've lived a lot longer than you. When you're young, you don't know you're a kid. No. They're not coming from that place. They're saying, hey, you keep going this way. You keep watching this thing. You keep giving into this sin. This will lead you to death. I care about you so much that I'm going to show you who has life, and that's Christ. Yeah. And you need to stop rejecting those lies. You need to start rejecting those lies. You need to start accepting this truth that, hey, the battle has already been won. Don't stay in this. And they just give you this hope. They wake you up in a way and point you more to Jesus, push you more than Jesus. And they will say the hardest things to you because their motive is not because they're older, because they're younger, because they've lived. No, their motive is not that. Their motive is say, it's Jesus and having more of Jesus.
Yeah.
So
that's good. So maybe what are some obstacles that you would say that you see when you're trying to make friends with someone of a different generation?
Give up your view of what it should look like. I would just say like that obstacle of just like, well, every time I hang out with this person, I'm just going to have coffee, or they can't play basketball with me. Now, both of those guys, I busted them up in basketball too. But it's like, there's just like, sometimes, I push this against this, like a lot of people say to talk about mentorship or talk about a lot of that stuff. Those obstacles of just like, you're just wanting something because they're older. Like don't have that posture as you go into someone that's older or younger. Just get to know them. Just treat them like you would treat them your peers too. But it's going to look different, like you said, though. Yeah. Like, Jimmy and I we're currently like going through the same things in life, right? So like we're going to relate differently. My buddies that are older than me, they've gone through the things that we're going through, but we're going to relate differently, but still the conversation can be meaningful.
Yes.
To help me grow closer to Jesus.
Yeah. You're going to have different perspectives, and there's pros and cons to that. Like, right?
Yeah.
Communication wise, you're going to have, in general, I think you're going to have easier communication with people who are a similar age of you because you've experienced similar stuff. You're culturally, the things that are going on, like the casual conversation topics that you're going to have are going to be similar, right? If I'm hanging out with my friend Ron, who is in his mid 70s and has lived life as a theologian, and doesn't really watch movies, I can't be like, hey, what did you think of the latest, Star Wars movie or Marvel movie? That's going to be a no conversation. Right. Or, you name it, like someone younger than me, like, I think we need to say, I really appreciate what you're saying. We need to come into those relationships not expecting it to function exactly the same as your peer level friendships. And it's going to take a little bit more work because, right, communicating is going to be a little bit different. What you're going to do is maybe going to be a little bit different than you would with your peers. But what we're saying is it is worth the work to develop those friendships.
Oh, it is. I'm just thinking about a moment, I went up to one of those guys and their outfit was sick. You know what they were? I was like, dude, that's sick. Who's sick?
Call the doctor.
So but it's like even sometimes the language is a little bit different. So too, it's like, and they're like, really, kids are wearing that or kids are saying that now? I was like, yeah, that's the cool thing, man. But
yeah, my 8-year-old is always saying yeet. I'm like, come on, man, that's just annoying. Like I know what it means, but that doesn't help communication. Yeah,
but yeah, it's we encourage you to pursue older friendships and younger friendships though too. But again, don't have this agenda of like, I want something out of this. It's just like, no, it's like the thing that we all are seeking is Jesus. And I think we can all help out each other to pursue him more in the times of hardship and even the good times too. I think there's something about counsel and counsel of many. And I think that counsel of many looks different from different ages too. So.
I mean, we've mentioned this in previous episodes, but there's a scene scripturally, a story that illustrates that really well. In 1 Kings chapter 12, Solomon, the wisest king who ever lived, dies. His son Rehoboam becomes king, and the people of Israel come to him. So leaders of the population come to him and are basically like, hey, your dad made us work really hard. We built the temple. We built these palaces. It was all this forced labor kind of stuff. Well, basically they're like, I'm paraphrasing here, obviously, but they're essentially like, hey, will you please tax us a little bit less, make things a little bit easier on us? And Rehoboam goes to the older men who are a part of his dad's kingdom and says, what do you guys think? They say, yeah, give the people what they want and they're going to love you forever. And then he goes to his peers, the young men who he's grown up with, and says, well, what do you guys think? And they say, basically, you know what you need to do? You need to show that you're as strong and more powerful than your dad. You need to say, you thought it was harder to them. You thought my dad was powerful. Watch this. I'm going to be even more intense. And what happens? It says God's judgment is in that. And what happens is it tears the kingdom apart. The people are like, we're not going to follow you if you're going to treat us that way.
That is so true right now.
Yeah.
Even like in these days, that's so true. And there's something to be said about your peers too.
Yeah.
There's something there about your peers of just like, hey, like, I think it's sometimes a lot guided by feelings or emotions. And I think that's most of your peers, that's their motives most of the time.
They're more likely to tell you what you want to hear because they have a similar perspective to you.
That's what I'm trying to say right there.
Yeah.
And when you, I think the best way to zoom out is to get it from like that older perspective, that older counsel. Like, hey, like listen to them, do it. There's some that happens too, right?
Yes.
But it also can happen too that they guide you in the wrong way.
Yeah, it's not guaranteed.
But it's like what we're saying is you need all of it and seek all of it, not to benefit, but to reflect Him.
Yeah. Why don't we let's wrap up with some practical thoughts. How exactly do you develop a friendship with someone of older or younger generation? What are maybe some practical things you could do? Let's start. I think let's address those differently. Let's start with older, briefly talk about that, and then we can talk about younger because I think they're a little bit different the way that you would do those things.
I think there's one common denominator between both, though. You're gonna have to go first.
Yes,
that's the first thing you have to just go first.
Yeah, don't assume. Oftentimes, when you're the younger person, you kind of are waiting on the person who's older to initiate. And Lord, I think that is the way that God generally intends it to happen. The person who's more mature should be the initiator, but don't just sit and wait for that. I think you have a calling to go first. If you have the Holy Spirit in you, you can say, hey, I'm going to initiate a friendship with this person.
Yeah. And as you do that, I would say, I think there's something about clarity that's helpful for both parties, whether older or younger. It's like, hey, there's something about the clarity. It's like, hey, one of my friends, it's a lot older than me. First thing, again, I didn't have this agenda of just like, we thought I was going to be friends with him. I didn't have that, right? But I wish I was. Sometimes it's just like, the more clear I got with him, the more closer we kind of became, if that makes sense, right? So to go first and to take that next step, it's like, hey, I know I said in this podcast, you're not going into something to take something from someone else. I think there's clarity of just like, hey, you exemplify this. Can I learn this from you?
Yeah. Like I really respect. I'm thinking of older couples at our church. I'm like, man, I really respect their marriage. They've been married for 50 plus years. I think a natural way for me to go first in that would be to say, hey, I've seen you guys interact. I really respect this. I would love to learn. Can we get coffee sometime? Can we get lunch? I just want to pick your brain on this specific topic. Yeah. I think that's a good starting point for someone older than you. Like you're saying, be clear about kind of what the purpose of that time is. Yeah. And that's going to be helpful as a starting point. Now, as a friendship develops, you're going to be able to develop a relationship, and then you can connect on the basis of the relationship. But at the outset, it's often helpful to give a reason for, hey, this is the reason why I want to connect with you.
Yeah, and I think sometimes too, like you have and try to put yourself in their shoe, right? I'm currently single, don't have kids or anything like that. They might have kids, they are busy and stuff like that. So it's like the more clear, you're just being helpful. I think communication can be a sign of respect.
Yeah, and it's going to be honoring to someone for you to come up to them and say, hey, I see this thing in you and you're doing this well. I want to be like you when I'm your age.
Yeah, and I think that's what I love about those two guys. It's like, man, the way they love their family. They are not perfect people at all, but the way they love their family is that they center everything around Jesus with the choices that they're making, with the way that they're speaking to their kids, with when work comes and they have to get this done, you see them pick the thing that's important to them and the thing that Jesus would say, hey, go deal with this. And they just do that. And like every time they've reflected that, it's helped me zoom out. I'm really making it about this thing.
Yeah.
I'm making this thing just as important. And they'll tell you too. It's like, hey, every time I made it about that, it affected my marriage. It affected my relationship with my kids. But as soon as I did it God's way, it flourished. There was fruit. They can show you that and they can share that with you.
Yeah. And as this is kind of maybe not necessarily a side note, but like a preliminary thing, I think if you are the kind of person, if your schedule, if your life is structured in such a way that you're not really around people of different generations, you need to change that for your own good and for the ultimate like growth of your life. Like if you go to a church and the only people you talk to are your peers, change that. Like go talk with people of different ages. We've talked in the past about how we lead a home group in our church. It's probably mostly, I'm making up numbers here, but it's probably 90+% young families, married couples. We have 2 or 3 kids. There's 3 college students who are a part of our group. And I was literally just last night thinking about this. There was a couple of the college students were there. A couple were gone because of finals or classes and stuff. And we had hangout night, kids running everywhere. We wrapped up that night and I was like, man, I need to text those 2 college students and be like, hey, I really am so appreciative that you guys come to this group, even though there's not a whole lot of your peers there. Because that shows a level of maturity for them, where they're saying, hey, I'm not just going to go where it's most comfortable or easiest for me. They're included in conversation. We all enjoy each other. But it takes a little bit more work. And they're intentionally putting themselves in places where they're going to get to know people who are of a different generation with them, both older and younger.
Yeah, and I think there's something about also receiving and pouring, right? So you receive something and then you should also pour. And with the younger generation, you can do that too.
Yeah,
like you can pour to I think of both two of my cousins. We became friends in this journey of just like, hey, we're working out together, or hey, like one of my cousins, like, I'm not as nice to my brother as I need to be. Like actually having those kind of conversation, or there's this young kid that is just fire for the Lord, and he's living it out. And he's doing Bible studies in his high school. That also encourages me.
Yeah,
that also encourages me too. And you see that, and there's nothing that I did, but to him to do that encourages me too.
Yes.
So it's like there's both there. There's pouring, but also like I can receive from the young and the older crowd too.
Yeah, and regardless of where you're at, and we're kind of arbitrarily breaking this up into three groups. You get the young, the kind of middle, and the older. Regardless of where you're at, if you have relationships with people in those other demographic groups, you're gonna benefit from that. Now, they're probably not going to be your closest friends. They're probably not going to be the people you call, when you want to go hang out on a Tuesday night or whatever. Maybe they will be, but probably that's not.
And that's okay.
Fine. Yeah,
that's
fine.
Okay.
Like, it doesn't mean it's not a friendship just because that's not the way it operates. Any final thoughts, comments, encouragements for people when we're talking about friendships of people with a different generation?
I've been saying this a lot, but it's about Jesus.
Yep.
Keeping it about the main person. And again, you can receive that from the older crowd and the younger crowd, and you can pour that to the older crowd and the younger crowd too. But do not stay in this place of I want what I want, and sometimes the things that you want is similar to you. So, don't live the ways of what's normal to you, but live according to what he says. And Jesus, crossed a lot of boundaries. And so I think we can reflect that with how we live with someone that's older than me and someone that's younger than me.
Yeah. Thanks so much for listening, guys. If this was beneficial to you, as always, would appreciate if you share, like, subscribe. Lots more episodes coming down the pike. We got lots and lots of stuff to talk about. There's tons that we can say in regards to friendship. And we can promise every episode, like you've been doing a great job of this episode, we're going to always be bringing it back to Jesus and saying, what is God saying? How does this need to shape the friendships that we have? That's what we're committed to. So thanks for listening, friends, and we'll see you next time.
Peace. Hey, friend. Thanks for listening. We're all about equipping you to pursue real friendships. You were not created to be alone, because life is just better with real friends. Let's get started.